Now to introduce our speaker. So we all are excited to listen him, his idea, his thinking, his writing and everything. All of us already well known about him. It's not that it's something that I am going to speak something new. Also one thing I just want to share that whatever I have collected from internet, browsing and all the things, we know this AI is there now. So we get everything that is possible. Like whatever is there in the clouds. So the thing is that my collection of his introduction doesn't fit what I am going to speak about his personality. So he has done so much work, not only in academia but also in the field. So whatever I am going to speak is a very small collection of his personality, his activism, his writing, and his cause for social justice, cause for social transformation. So I'll just speak it out. So as we know, Professor G. Aloysius, so how do we call it? GNA? How do we speak GNA? So popularly actually when I was writing one email, I put his name, so I found GANNAALOYSIUS. So it's Ghana Aloysius or something, I don't know. So popularly
that is the email.
Yes.
Email form.
Yes. So he is popularly known as G. Aloysius. He is one of the India's most distinguished public intellectuals, as Julie said, and critical thinkers. With an academic foundation from primary institution, he completed his MPhil from Jawaharlal Nehru University from the Center of Study of Social System. So it was his thesis from MPhil that he published the book, he converted it into a book that is very well known to all of us, that Nationalism Without a Nation in India. His scholarly works question the ideological underpinnings of mainstream nationalism in India and Brahminical nationalism in India, and offers incisive alternative rooted in anti-caste and subaltern thoughts. His landmark book, as I said, Nationalism Without a Nation in India, he published it in 1997, just imagine. Now it's in its 20th reprints now. Just imagine the book is in its 20th reprints. Remains a seminal intervention in Indian socio-political thought. He is also the author of so many books like Region as Emancipatory Identity, published in 2000, the editor of important project such as the collected works of Vijay Tirthasar, 1999, again in 2003, then the Lakshmi Narasu, Religion of Modern Buddhism. And something very interesting he was sharing that before I introduce his academic background. So he was sharing that before he came to academia, he worked in the field for 20 years, more than 20 years, 2 decades, that too in Jharkhand. And he visited Odisha so many times. It was a collective Odisha earlier. So we can call it, he worked in Odisha also. So it was only after working for 20 years in the field, he came to academia. And he started his academic career that from here only, NISWASS. So it's a very proud moment for all of us that he started his academic journey from NISWASS and now he has come back here to enlighten us. There are so many issues. So, as I say, the prolific scholar Dr. Aloysius has published widely in reputed national and international journals on topics such as Indian nationalism, caste, cultural politics, Dalit Bahujan movement in South India, and the question of tribal identity and autonomy. His deep commitment to knowledge dissemination led him to publish Critical Quest. As you know, the Critical Quest books are there outside, you can have it. The publishing initiative that has brought critical and anti-caste literature into public discourse. And it was in 2004 he started Critical Quest. Also there is one more story before the Critical Quest. When he was there in Jharkhand and working as a activist, I will not call it a activist, but a activist and a scholar also. So there they used to they used to distribute pamphlets. And I think it's from there the idea of Critical Quest came to his mind and he started writing in English only. And he started publishing this idea of like the thing that he has already gained by writing the book Nationalism Without a Nation. He started this idea from that book only. And while I was browsing upon like what was this Critical Quest all about, so I found something very interesting on internet that someone has written that the price of Critical Quest achieved at 2 samosas and 1 tea. So it's like some 20 rupees or 30 rupees you get a single book, and that book is so critical that it's give you a complete idea on one particular topic or one particular person or one particular resource. So you can have it there outside. So coming back to his introduction again, Dr. Aloysius is a global scholar who has taught at many prestigious institutions including Columbia University, JNU, English and Foreign Language University, Phule, Jamia, DU and many more to be added here. Yet his intellectual life has never been confined to the academia alone. As I said, he had worked 20 years in Jharkhand. So he has worked closely with travel and social movement across India, particularly in Jharkhand, where he spent nearly 2 decades, more than 2 decades, setting up schools for Adivasi children, engaging in human rights advocacy, and building grassroots educational and cultural discourses. Both in scholarship and activism, Dr. Aloysius exemplifies a rare example of rigorous critique and deep social commitment. His presence in this workshop is not only an academic honor, but also a moral and political aspiration to all of us. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. And I am so sure that this my collection of your introduction, I don't think it's completely fit in your personality and the work that you have done. But the speech itself will tell us a brief introduction of his life, his personality, and his work. So moving forward, before we give a brief introduction of the program, I just want to put a small context of this workshop. So there are some questions only. I'll just read it out without giving any introduction. Let us think about the society that we are living now. Let us think about the context we have now. Not only in academia but also in activism. Not only in activism but also in academia. It's vice versa. The first question, why is there a need for an intellectual movement in Odisha? We need to think it properly. And we don't even discuss about academia or intellectualism in Ambedkarite movement, especially in Odisha context. So we need to think why there is a need of intellectual movement in Odisha. The second question, why there are no sustained emancipatory tradition or culture in a state like Odisha? We know there have been a very great past. The history was so great that like we had our idea of Buddhism, we had our like own framework, emancipatory framework, like Phule was there in Maharashtra. At the same time, Bhima Bhoi was here in Odisha. But Phule got so famous in Maharashtra, but Bhima Bhoi, even today, he is not well known to even Odisha people. So we need to think, there were people, it's not that there were no one, there were intellectuals, but we never had a sustained intellectual emancipatory framework, tradition. Third question, why did a state like Odisha, which had a rich Buddhist history, like as we know, before the Pala dynasty, the Buddhism was there in Odisha, and it was from Odisha it went to West Bengal. Why we lose its spark in historical discourse? Why are there so many PhD scholars among us? In Odisha, you see, there are so many PhD scholars studying in all the universities, starting from Utkal University to NISWASS to you go to TISS, JNU, SU, even going to Columbia, Harvard, Oxford, everywhere. But there is not a single intellectual movement or single intellectual forum in Odisha. Not even a single intellectual student forum in Odisha. And there is no discourse or no discussion on intellectual movement. One more question. Why the Ambedkar of Odisha couldn't defend the ideology of Bhima Bhoi, Birsa Munda, Babasaheb Ambedkar, Phule, Kansram and all those emancipators? So we see Bhima Bhoi was here. Bhima Bhoi is from Odisha only. But still, the idea of Bhima Bhoi, the writing of Bhima Bhoi is so much distorted that we feel it as Brahmanica. The person who is not an Ambedkarite, if he reads or she reads, they will find it's a part of Jagannath culture only. They will never see it as an emancipatory culture. So we need to rethink about this. Another question, why do we need to rethink Odia society, culture, economy, politics based on the perspective of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Mahatma Phule, Savitribai Phule, Bhima Bhoi and others? So there is a Odia culture, as we know, very dominant. The language, the tradition, everything. And people coming from Odisha, we know there are so many segregation between us. So we need to rethink about it. The idea of Jagannath culture, the idea of Odia culture, the idea of Odia nationalism. We need to think about it, rethink about it from the perspective of Babasaheb Ambedkar, Bhima Bhoi, even Jyotiba Phule and all those emancipators. Then another question, there are very rare intellectual or academic workshop or conference to witness in Odisha. We see this is one of the rarest intellectual, I can say, or academic workshop that we are organizing here. And we don't see such kind of engagement anywhere in Odisha. So why? We need to think about that also. So without taking much time, now I request Dr. Jadamani to give a brief introduction about the conference, about the workshop that we are having today. Yeah, thank you. Please, Jadla.
Okay, thank you, Julie, and thank you, Subal, for your very excellent way of introducing the seminar and introducing Professor Aloysius. It is also my great pleasure to be here introducing this workshop, and many things already been pointed out by Subal. I need not to repeat them at all. But whenever you think about Odisha, not merely the intellectual movement, emancipatory intellectual movement, but also in terms of social political movement that we very often see in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and many other states, where we see so many literary figures, we see so many activists, we see so many political leaders. But when it comes to Odisha, definitely the amount of impact and the amount of influence that we see in terms of emancipatory struggle, I think in my limited understanding, in my limited reading, I must confess on that. So we do not really have that kind of influence, that kind of impact in the state and outside of the state. I remember 1950s, a small essay by Mukta Salve, 14-year-old girl. She was a student of Savitribai Phule and Mahatma Phule, and the essay she wrote, and we teach in the OP Jindal University, along with many other writings. So what is the trajectory of 150 years of this, intellectual understanding of anti-caste, anti-patriarchy, and so on, anti-feudal and so on. In Odisha, probably we do not have that kind of an essay even in the last 150 years of our activism. So therefore, in that kind of a context, I remember Birsa Munda, I remember Bhima Bhoi, I remember Lakshman Naik and many others. So when we read their literature, when we read about them, probably it is again one need to actually put it in the context of nationalism, put it in the context of 19th century, by which we will contextualize Odisha. What kind of socio-political, geographical, language region at that time Odisha was going through. How there was a colonial heritage, colonial legacy impacted in Odisha. So when we read these three thinkers, Lakshman Naik, Bhima Bhoi, and Birsa Munda, I would make it clear that there was a very less impact of colonialism and modernity. So therefore, when you read the book written by Phule, 1848, Slavery, and the slavery is a term that really captures the brutality of caste as slavery system. How caste and religion really intertwine, therefore, people are slaved in the name of caste, religion and so on. So when you read Bhima Bhoi, when you read Lakshman Naik and Birsa Munda, they have their own understanding of, critiquing in Odisha the British colonialism against feudalism. One can really, organize a seminar on that itself. When you read Bhima Bhoi for that matter, Bhima Bhoi is a saint figure, is a godly figure. He probably theorized something called, Nirved, which is to go against the Veda and Brahminical social order and Brahminical intellectual dominance. And that could also formulate and help us to critique what kind of Brahminical social order that we see in Odisha. And in a way, it also critiques Odia intellectual hegemony, Odia Brahminical hegemony, somebody would say. So, ironically, there are some scholars across, they say that Odia society has a very very lack of or very less impact on caste. Caste is a very colonial, caste is a very colonial category, and caste is something that through colonialism, spread across, Indian subcontinent. So therefore, in that kind of a context, Odisha is a state which has very less impact of, caste. I must be skeptical on those kind of articulation, because when you go back to 18th century, when you go back to 17th century, Odisha was a state making so much temple across the state. I would remember, European Enlightenment in 17th century, and please go back and look at the construction of temple in 17th century across, I would say, the coastal part of Odisha and other part of Odisha. So that is the transformation going on in the 17th century. So therefore there is so much temple culture, and somebody also need to theorize and critically understand that what is this temple really epitomize in Odisha. And the Bhubaneswar is a city that really called as the temple city. So so without kind of ignoring the impact and the contribution of Bhima Bhoi, Birsa Munda, Lakshman Naik and many others, we need to also develop this kind of framework. And how many of our intellectual and scholars who are teaching in different universities really develop that framework of thought by which somebody can really do research, somebody can write an assignment, somebody can do an thesis on that, which is very rare. Probably people have done that for their kind of very professional thing, but how that professional writing and understanding really help in general to understand how really Bhima Bhoi's thought could really challenge the Brahminical dominance. I think we are missing that kind of articulation. I would like to make also a very critical statement here. All these three were Adivasi and tribal leaders. So when it comes to caste and Brahminical engagement, it has its own limitation. It is not to ignore their contribution. At the same time, one need to understand that how these all thinkers, leaders, their impact and their critique on Brahminical society has its own limitation. On that kind of an argument, I also like to make a point that in last 200 years in Odisha there is no Dalit leaders. So when it comes to Dalit articulation of caste, Brahminism, you see or people who are really sufferer of caste, you see a different articulation. And last 200 years we are missing that. But if you read some of literature by Bhima Bhoi normative, in a normative sense, provide the idea of equality. But in what way really you challenge the inequality in society? In that kind of a sense, in the 19th century, Bhima Bhoi's idea could be something very much related to American Declaration of Rights. American Declaration of Rights claim that all men are created equal. So Bhima Bhoi says that all are equal, right? So, but when it comes to ground, how do this Bhima Bhoi's followers challenge this caste, patriarchy, inequality, and so on? So therefore, what we see basically in Odisha, the Bhima Bhoi's followers, they become really casteist. So many untouchable people who converted to Alek Dhamma and Bhima Bhoi's one thing, they remain untouchable. So that's very, very ironical. So, so in that kind of a context, our efforts is kind of, I would not say very unique. There are also many public intellectuals. One of them is sitting here, great writer Vasudev Sunani sir. So we must appreciate and acknowledge his contribution, and there are few others. But when it comes to academic and kind of speaking in the academic platform, we are missing that. So therefore, when we all introspect and analyze last 150 years of emancipatory intellectual activities, emancipatory movement in Odisha, we are missing so much compared to many other states. So therefore, this effort is to generate a kind of a consciousness among the student, researcher, activists, and the teacher who are teaching in different university, college, school, and so on. That how somebody can really bring those kind of interpretation, those kind of writings to their syllabus. How this kind of idea to be framed in the Odisha, let's say, syllabus and the curriculum. I don't know all this interpretation and perspective are available. So therefore we are missing this. And if it is not taught in the university, college, and the school where it should be taught, how long we really see Birsa Munda as a person of Adivasi, as a celebrated person without really celebrating his idea, right? How long we only see their art and architecture and the street. Whenever you think about Adivasi, you only think they should be dancing. How long we think in that way? And how Adivasi's questions should not be taught in the classroom and the seminar and so on and so forth. So this small effort is to generate this critical consciousness, and hopefully we will continue based on the response from everyone who are sitting attending this conference, this academic workshop. And I would not take much time. When I present, I will speak more on this. So, and I thank Professor Aloysius agreed to come here and help us understanding this framework and give his all insight and experience and guide us to take it further. So I hope to be Subha. Thank you.